Hello, my name is Lewis and welcome to day 20 of Decktober. Today we're looking at a $60 budget Lynde Cheerful Tormentor deck tech. Lynde says whenever a curse is put into your graveyard from the field, return it to the field attached to you at the beginning of the next end step, and at the beginning of your upkeep you can attach a curse attached to you to one of your opponents, also drawing 2 cards. This deck is all about getting out as many curses as possible, attach them all to your opponents, and if they manage to remove them, Lynde keeps bringing them back and back until we watch our opponents slowly drain to death. Now, let's get right into the budget deck tech. As always, we're starting off these budget brews hot with the ramp, and we're taking a trip to Signet City with Arcane to tap for any one of those Grixis colours, and Dimir Signet to pay and tap for Dimir. There's Rakdos Signet to pay and tap for Rakdos, and to round it off we have Izzet Signet to pay and tap for Izzet. We've got Talisman of Creativity to tap for a generic or either Izzet, but at the cost of 1 damage to you, and Talisman of Indulgence to again tap for a generic or either Rakdos, but at the cost of 1 damage to yourself. There's Regenerating Nightscape Familiar to cheapen those blue and red spells by 1, and finally we have Sol Ring, because Sol Ring. Before we get into all of our cursing bonanza, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel for all things MTG. It's completely free to do, and it helps the channel grow and grow as we head towards 2,000 subscribers. So now we're looking at every curse we've crammed into this deck, of which there are plenty. Starting off with Bloodletting, that says if a source would be dealt damage to enchanted player, it deals double that damage instead, and Chaos, that says whenever a player attacks enchanted player with 1 or more creatures, that attacking player may discard a card to draw a card. We've got Death's Hold to give all creatures enchanted player controls -1/-1, and Disturbance that says whenever enchanted player is attacked, create a 2/2 zombie token, with each attacking player doing the same. Having these dozens of curses are so good because not only does it do things like weaken our opponent's army, but there are plenty of curses that will benefit your opponents from attacking your other opponents, leaving you able to sit back and relax about your own life total. There's Echoes that says whenever cursed player casts an instant or sorcery spell, each other player may copy that spell and choose new targets for the spell, and Fool's Wisdom that says whenever enchanted player draws a card, they lose 2 life and you gain 2, being able to cast with that madness cost 2. We've added Inertia that says whenever a player attacks enchanted player with 1 or more creatures, attacking may play tap or untap target permanent of their choice, and Leeches that says at the beginning of enchanted player's upkeep, they lose 1 life and you gain 1 life. It can also transform into Leeching Lurker, a 4/4 with lifelink. And yes, I'm not saying curse off before all of them, or otherwise I'd be saying curse about 100 times in this video.
You are lazy, Lewis.
We have Misfortunes that says at the beginning of your upkeep you can search your library for a curse card, put it onto the field attached to enchanted player, and Obsession that enchants target player.
That's good.
It allows them to draw 2 cards on the beginning of their draw step,
That's bad.
and at the beginning of enchanted player's end step they have to discard their entire hand.
That's good.
We've got Shaken Faith that says whenever enchanted player casts a spell other than the first spell they cast each turn or copy, Shaken Faith does 2 damage to them. And Shallow Graves that says whenever a player attacks enchanted player with 1 or more creatures, attacking player may put a 2/2 zombie creature token onto the field tapped. We've added Stalked Prey to put a 1/1 counter on target creature whenever it deals combat damage to enchanted player, and Surveillance that says at the beginning of enchanted player's upkeep, any number of other players may draw cards equal to the number of curses attached to that player. Like I said before, with an abundance of cards that will help your opponents out, Lynde will really keep you in a position where you won't be attacked. There's the Bloody Tome to mill enchanted player for 2 at the beginning of their upkeep, and the Nightly Hunt that says creatures enchanted player controls attack each turn if able. We've got the Restless Dead that says whenever a land ETBs under enchanted player's control, you create a 2/2 zombie creature token with Decayed, and Thirst to deal damage to enchanted player at the beginning of their upkeep equal to the number of curses attached to them. There is Unbinding that says at the beginning of enchanted player's upkeep, they reveal cards from the top of their library until they reveal a creature. You put that creature onto the field under your control, and enchanted player puts the rest of the cards into their graveyard. And Verbosity to draw any player a card whenever they attack enchanted player. There's Fraying Sanity that at the beginning of each end step, enchanted player mills X, where X is the number of cards put into a graveyard from anywhere this turn, and Maddening Hex that when enchanted player casts a non-creature spell, they roll a d6, dealing damage to the player equal to the result, with you then attaching Maddening Hex to another opponent at random. Onto the final 5 we have Torment of Scarabs to make enchanted player lose 3 life on their upkeep, unless they sack a non-land permanent or discard a card, and Trespasser's Curse to drain your opponent for 1 life whenever a creature ETBs under your control, with you gaining a life. We've got Pierced Heart to deal 1 damage to enchanted player on their upkeep, and a Cursed Witch that when dies transforms into Infectious Curse, making spells cost 1 cheaper that target enchanted player, also draining your opponent for 1 on their upkeep and gaining you 1 life. Finally, we have Cruel Reality to make enchanted players sack a creature or planeswalker on their upkeep. If they can't, they're losing 5 life. Now we've finally blasted through all of those curses, let's look at some of those enchantment loving cards. Starting with Protein Thaumaturge that says whenever an enchantment ETBs under your control, you can have it become a copy of another target creature having this ability. And Calaf, Beloved of the Sea that says creatures and enchantments you control have spells your opponents cast that target this permanent cost 1 more to cast. We've got Grim Guardian to make each opponent lose a life when it or another enchantment ETBs under your control, and Agent of Erebos to exile all cards from target graveyard whenever it or another enchantment ETBs under your control. And with Lynde out and constantly returning these curses from the graveyard to us, this is a trigger that could be happening more often than not. We've added Clever Impersonator to enter as a copy of any non-land permanent on the battlefield, and Blackheart Witch that when dies, we can search our library for a curse card, putting it onto the battlefield attached to target player. There's Thoughtbreaker Lamia to make each opponent discard a card whenever it or another enchantment hits the field under your control, and Forgeborn Oreads to deal 1 damage to target creature or player whenever it or another enchantment ETBs under your control. We have Dreamshaper Shaman to pay 3 and sack a non-land permanent on our end step. If we do, we reveal cards from our library until we reveal a non-land permanent, putting that onto the battlefield and all other revealed cards on the bottom of our library. And Psychic Impetus to enchant creature, giving it +2/+2 and goaded, allowing you to scry 2 when it attacks. For some more goaders, we have Parasitic Impetus, again with the +2/+2 and goaded, gaining you 2 life and draining its controller for 2 when it attacks, and Shiny Impetus for that lovely +2/+2 and goaded, with this one creating you a tasty treasure when goaded creature attacks. Finally, there is Blightcaster to give target creature -2/-2 until end of turn when you cast an enchantment spell, and Doomweight Giant to give your opponent's creatures -1/-1 until end of turn whenever that or another enchantment ETBs under your control. Before we finish up with the lands, we're looking at the best of the rest in this budget brew, starting off with the card draw with Commander Classic Opt to scry 1 and draw a card, and Preordained to scry 2 and draw a card. There's Brainstorm to draw 3, then putting 2 cards from your hand on top of your library in any order, and Fate Unraveler that says whenever an opponent draws a card, it deals 1 damage to that player. For some protection, we have Fogbank that prevents all combat damage that would be dealt to and dealt by Fogbank, and Propaganda to make opponents pay 2 for each creature they want to attack you. And who wants to spend mana to do that? We have Battle of Frost and Fire as some removal, scrying and card draw options, and Elspeth's Nightmare to destroy an opponent's creature with power 2 or less, remove a non-creature non-land card from an opponent's hand, and exile an opponent's graveyard. There's Phyrexian Scriptures to destroy all non-artifact creatures, also exiling all cards from all opponents' graveyards, and the Acroan War to gain control of target creature, forcing your opponents to attack with all creatures, and then having each tapped creature deal damage equal to its power to itself. We have potential board wipe Extinction Event to choose odd or even, exiling each creature with mana value of the chosen value, and finally there's Shadow's Verdict to exile all creatures and planeswalkers with mana value 3 or less from the battlefield and all graveyards. Now we're rounding this budget deck tech off with all of those lands. First up, having 11 Island, 11 Swamp and 10 Mountain. We have classic Commander mana fixes in Command Tower and Exotic Orchard, and even more Commander staples in Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse to sack and get those basic lands tapped. Finally, there's Crumbling Necropolis to tap for that Grixis option. Lynde is a fantastic new commander option, and definitely one that's more on the fun side, especially if you enjoy watching your opponents slowly suffer through endless curses. Make sure to check into Decktober Day 21 tomorrow, where we'll be looking at an excellent and very popular commander option. There we have it, that is the $60 Lynde budget deck tech. Thanks for watching, and make sure to smash that like button and subscribe for all things MTG. Check out our link tree in the description below for all of our social media and affiliate links. For now though, I am all tapped out, so I'll see you in the next video.